this is the kind of thing you can do. So we've got one regular clip down below, and this clip above has a PiP kit effect applied. This one's called rectangles, and these are all the options. Here is Fun with Stuff PiP kit, so circle, rectangles, and then we've got other things. We've got arrows, there's a combo effect, which is a circle and a square, there's a freeform four corner, freeform smooth, instant picture, which is really kind of fun, polygons, scribble, and a lot of these have other options in there as well. So we've got different kinds of speech bubbles. There's lots of different shapes hiding in shapes. The dynamic ones move. And then we've got some special static ones at the bottom, which are good if you want to keyframe stuff, because there are some weird things in Final Cut. It doesn't like it if you have really, really, really long clips and you have animations in and out. Here's another example here. We've got, this one is with a circle popping up, and I'll just play this live. There we go. So this is just two clips. We've got the clip underneath and the clip on top, so that the circle is on top. The other one is obviously underneath. And it animates up, and then the video plays inside. So to create that, I've just got these two clips right on top of the other. So I'll just zoom in to show you there. And there's nothing on this clip. I haven't done anything to it. There's no color correction. Ditto the one underneath. So I can hover over and find out what effect I want to use. So I could put a speech bubble. I could put polygons. But I'll go with a straight boring one. I'll go with the circles. So just drag it on. That's it. And it comes on with a default animation, which is a scale up medium. But you can make it go fast or slow as well. There's fast. And there's slow. And however you've done it, you can move this around to wherever you want it to be. You can change the size. You can rotate it if you want to. With the circle scale, this means you can make wider or taller circles. Now, if you ever get yourself in a position where you see that the circle's no longer a circle, it means the contents are not big enough to fill the circle. So make the circle smaller is the easiest way to do it. But there is a content scale, so you can zoom in and then reposition the contents of that wherever you want. And all the animations still work. So you can pop that in wherever, and you can change the outline width to whatever you like. You can change the color, or you can even use a gradient. Now, I like the outline gradient, so if I make that a little bit thicker, and I'm going to right-click to get the quick changing effects here on the gradient, then there we go. You can change where that smooths out. You can make that a little bit wider or smaller. And there's also fade outside and fade inside, so you can get some really quite complex effects. And whatever animation style you used for the start will also be used for the end, assuming, of course, you don't disable those ins and outs. So you can turn the build in and out off if you want to. So I think this kind of thing should be really useful. This is in the titles browser in the same category as the effects, so Fun with Stuff PiP kit. And if you drag Obscure with Fade down onto the timeline, this is an adjustment layer, but it fades in. And it will fade out at the end as well. These things are built in. So I've got a built-in blur. Of course, you can grow on the numbers to get it up to silly amounts. We've got a brightness control. We've also got gamma, so you can have a softer effect, or you can make it really quite dark. You can vignette to darken down the corners. And there's also a crystallize if you want this effect. You can have really chunky crystallize. And so this means you can really disguise what's going on in the background. And yeah, you can animate that if you want to. The point of this is to be able to darken down the background. You can put text on top if you want, like ignore the picture-in-picture effect. It's really flexible. So this one just fades on and off. If you want the same kind of effect with a wipe to come in and out, then you can wipe the effect on as well. And that is controllable. You can change the wipe speed, fast, medium, slow. And we've got a direction which controls the angle that this sweeps on at. You know, if I want to tint this whole thing yellow or red or whatever, that's fine. The fade one does this too. And because everything is all effects, you can just trim to finesse the timing. If your clip was showing the wrong bit there, just tap T to get on the trim tool, and you can slip and just move to showing a different bit of that clip. And it just makes it so easy to get the right time. So the principle is the same depending on whichever ones you use, but there is a really neat trick which I've built into this as well. So this is an effect called instant picture. So it works just the same as the other ones, except this one is using a different animation strategy. So this lets you start with a full screen video and then seamlessly come on in to the instant picture. Now, this just requires a tiny bit more work. So here we go, just got this clip all the way along the top. So if you grab the blade tool, B for blade, chop in the middle there, and you put that effect on the second half. That's it. You see there, that was just animating up. We don't want it to animate up, we want to animate down. So scale down means it starts from full screen and comes in. It's really fun. You can still reposition that, you can shrink it down, you can rotate that to some other angle if you want to, and of course you could do multiple clips, but it'll still animate down to that position. So you have flexibility, you can still go from full screen to whatever you want. I might blade that A and just turn the effect off on that second half, and now it's going to come back up to full screen and stay there. I'd like to think this is going to produce some interesting, some interesting results that we haven't really seen. Because I see a lot of picture-in-picture effects, but there's not a lot of necessarily really interesting ways that they're done. So I've got some transitions built in here as well. So the Fun with Stuff PiP Kit transitions, there's just a few, but they cover bases which haven't been covered. You've got ins and outs, which is a bit special. So that's the reason that they work on these connected clips. So normally, if I was to throw something like a radial blur onto a clip like this, and I'll just move that in a bit, then you saw the whole thing blurred, the background blurred as well, the whole thing gets messy. If instead of that, you use the PiP Kit transitions, and I'll use a radial blur in, then it's just going to apply to the connected clip. And you can turn off the built-in transitions, of course, here, so that you're just left only with that blur and fade, or fade and scale, or what you want to do. There's a push in with motion blur as well. And if you use that one, then you can govern exactly where, and how far away that is coming from. So it's what direction is that going to come in from. So let's have it coming in from there. And then you see a bit of motion blur on that. Some cool stuff. And it lets you tackle a situation where you've got a lot of these clips and you kind of want to show them all together. Maybe you want to overwhelm people with options. So I'm just going to throw a bunch of different effects onto each of these. Let's try shapes, and I'll leave that other clip there behind. So with each of those, I'm just going to scale them down, move them over, and there's a few different arrows in there. So there's a chevron, and you can control how pointy it is, how wide it is. You can certainly customize these shapes quite a lot. There's a plain boring triangle, and there's one called pointy, just that one. Shrink that one down. I tried to keep these, useful. This one is good. This is the retro style plugin, and all 4 points of this can be moved. And you can control the roundness on that as well if you want. You can absolutely use the position tool in the viewer. So, if I was to go to the transform option here, then yeah, you can move it around. And that'll work fine so long as you're not using scale down. So scale down, because it's coming in from full screen, it'll need to be not repositioned that way. But if you're doing the other ones, totally fine. So there's the picture-in-picture effect, and if I want to zoom in on that, I'm just going to move that over, punch in, and it'll punch out at the end. Fast, medium, slow. And how much do you want to zoom in, and do you want to move over a bit? And so that works fine. Yeah, I'll just throw a ripple on there. That one's kind of fun. Ooh, speech bubbles. I want to see people do this, use the speech bubbles and do something cool with that. Because yeah, you can move the angle around to different angles. You can also change the scale. You can save this as effects presets because they're just effects. So anything you spend time customizing, right, I can just hit Save Effects Preset. And I'm going to call it Funky Speech Bubble. And then if I find some other clip that I want to put Funky Speech Bubble on, and just search for Funky, make sure I'm looking at all my effects. There is Funky Speech Bubble, and it's done. That's actually pretty good. I kind of like one car thinking about another car. That works really quite nicely. And yeah, you could use this with tracking because it's just an effect and it's just a clip. Setting these up as a batch of saved presets means that you can be super, super consistent. So if you're doing tutorials and you want your little talking head to always sit in the bottom right-hand corner, for example, save a preset, you're done. And then you can just do that same consistent thing. If you don't want any border at all, you just take either fade inside or outside and just crank it to 100. Border's gone. That's just a picture split screen effect. And this is with the static options. If you use the rectangle options, I was able to include the on-screen controls. So that can make making split screens a bit easier, especially if you use the horizon, because then you've got that 50% line to line up to. So that's view, show horizon. So that's the static for keyframing. There's two rectangles, one with round corners and one without. The on-screen control works better if there's no round corners. The idea behind this one is that you might want to keyframe one of these values to move a shot in or out. Yeah, if I wanted to keyframe these things, then I could, because I'm in the static version. It's helpful if you need to move someone up or down in the shot. Keyframing them in the others doesn't work very well because Final Cut gets a bit confused about what you're trying to do.